So here's a sentence the internet has been waiting years to see, and that is, the parents who turned their 3-year-old into a billion-dollar brand just watched that same empire publicly collapse. And the wildest part is that nobody's even surprised, just satisfied. But to understand why this feels so deserved, you have to go back to where it started. Because this whole thing didn't begin as some cold, calculated scheme. At least it didn't look like that on the surface. Because in 2015, a 3-year-old named Ryan told his mum he wanted to start making YouTube videos like the kids he watched online. So his parents filmed him picking out a Lego train set at a toy store, uploaded it, and for a while, absolutely nothing crazy happened. Just a normal kid, normal family, and normal life. But then came the video that changed everything. A giant Lightning McQueen surprise egg stuffed with over 100 Disney Cars toys. Ryan completely loses his mind with excitement. The internet loses its mind watching him, and the video racks up 1.2 billion views. Not a million, a billion, with a B. And the kid was just 3 years old. I barely had a functioning vocabulary at 3, and yet this child was outperforming entire media studios. So right there, Cheyenne and Loan Kaji stood at a crossroads that would come to define their entire legacy. Do you treat this as a lucky, once-in-a-lifetime moment that your kid gets to enjoy, or do you look at those numbers, do the maths, and quietly start planning what comes next? What would you guys do? Let me know in the comments, because both of them quit their stable jobs, not to give Ryan more free time, but to go all in on the brand. And I'll be fair to his parents, in the beginning, that's not automatically an evil decision. Parents take risks on their kids' talents all the time, but the operation they built after that is a whole different story. So stick around, because behind the cute smiles and toy unboxings is something way darker. Because then, they launched Sunlight Entertainment, a full production company with 30 employees on payroll. Which is just crazy if you ask me, because remember, this is meant to be a kid having fun opening toys. I mean, their home even got completely gutted and turned into professional filming sets, with lighting rigs, camera equipment, and props stuffed into every corner. And at their peak, they were running more than 10 channels simultaneously and producing up to 25 video segments every single week. So you can just imagine that Ryan's daily life, including breakfast, trips to the store, birthday parties, every single school project, all of it became content. All of it got filmed, uploaded, and monetized. Now, just to put the scale in perspective, Mr. Beast's main channel has around 950 total videos. Whereas Ryan's World has over 3,500 videos. That number alone tells you exactly who was really driving this operation. And it was not the same 3-year-old who wanted to simply unbox a few toys. Now, just think of that for a second. 3,600 videos. That means this little man was working beyond overtime. Like, I don't even know what you would call it. They need to almost come up with a new word just for Ryan, for whatever comes after overtime. Something like exploitation. Okay, moving on. Because at one point, Ryan had topped YouTube's highest earner list 3 years straight, and not the highest paid kid creator, the highest paid anyone on the entire platform. He was pulling in nearly $30 million a year while still losing baby teeth. And here's the part that genuinely makes your jaw drop. Not $1 of it had any legal protection. Child actors in Hollywood have had financial safeguards since the Coogan Law was passed in 1939, which forces parents to set aside a percentage into a protected trust. But child influencers were completely unregulated, meaning every single dollar Ryan generated legally belonged to his parents. No trust fund, no locked savings, no legal guardian standing between them and his income, nothing. So he was the product, the brand ambassador, and the cash machine all at once. Yet his parents had all the control. So in 2019, the FTC and the New York Attorney General came swinging. Not directly at the Kajis, but at YouTube itself, slapping the platform with a $170 million fine. This was the largest copper settlement in history, all because YouTube allowed channels like Ryan's World to serve targeted ads on children's content while harvesting data from kids who couldn't even read a privacy policy. And as a direct consequence, YouTube dismantled the exact infrastructure that Ryan's parents had built their entire business model around, resulting in comments being disabled for kids' content and targeted advertising being heavily restricted, which had a massive impact on the Ryan's World channel revenue. Cheyenne Kaji admitted it himself in an interview, saying they lost 70% of their income overnight. So a reasonable person might have taken that as a sign to slow down, maybe find their moral compass. But instead, they pushed even harder, with more uploads and more recycled footage, clearly to make up for the lost revenue, which tells you everything you need to know about where their head was at. But that also just meant that Ryan had to work even harder.
We lost revenue of 70%.
I just pushed through.
They even started looping old videos in live streams just to capture whatever leftover ad revenue was still trickling in. They also repackaged Ryan's most charming moments from when he was 4 years old and ran them back because the new content had Ryan looking like someone who had already mentally clocked out a long time ago, which was completely understandable, not just likely due to burnout, but because of the simple truth that Ryan was growing up, and the audience that grew up with him had moved on entirely. So kids who discovered him at 5 were now teenagers spending their time on gaming channels, social media, and anything that didn't involve a 14-year-old pretending to be excited about toys designed for preschoolers. It got to a point where his own peers were concerned about him. Former fans left comments saying they used to be jealous of his life and were now just grateful to be normal kids. But instead of reading any of these signals, his parents announced a movie, Ryan's World Titan Universe Adventure, which had a $10 million budget. Wide theatrical release across over 1,200 screens in the US, UK, Canada, and Ireland. The pitch was that this would push the brand into mainstream entertainment and prove Ryan's World could compete beyond YouTube. So, this was meant to be massive. But the result was a 1.8 out of 10 on IMDb, the 9th worst rated film of the entire year across every genre. Theatre staff at multiple locations reported individual screenings with literally zero ticket sales, and the entire run grossed $624,000. So they didn't just lose money, they produced a publicly documented, irrefutable receipt that the empire had nothing left inside it. But the failure of the movie almost didn't matter, because what came right after is what actually proved that Ryan's parents are just greedy, money-hungry people. Because instead of stepping back and learning from what happened with Ryan, his parents quietly pivoted to his twin sisters, Emma and Kate. So now that Ryan was too old, they started featuring his younger sisters more and more on the main channel, but also gave them their own animation series, their own content, branding, and merchandise. Which is just crazy because as soon as Ryan was no longer the main attraction, they just moved on to his sisters with the same rinse and repeat tactics. But a podcast appearance told the entire story and said more than any call-out video could. Because firstly, Ryan is the guest, but his parents do the majority of the talking. And on the rare occasions he does speak, he looks at them first. Checking, making sure whatever's about to come out of his mouth is approved. And when asked if he still enjoys making content, he answered carefully in past tense, saying he loved it when he was a kid and got to play with the toys, but the fact that he said it in past tense just proves he has grown up and no longer enjoys it. And this clip alone proves my previous point in the video.
You're on track to be a teenage billionaire. How much does Ryan get to keep of all this?
Oh, be careful, Ryan.
So if you watch that podcast and read between the lines, it almost proves everything people speculated and is probably the exact reason they have never done another one. Now, besides from the public backlash, losing millions on a failed movie, and Ryan's World's channel views in freefall, there are finally consequences coming into play after multiple US states have now passed child influencer protection laws directly inspired by Ryan's case. So states like Illinois, California, Utah, Arkansas, and Arizona now legally require parents earning from their kids' content to lock a portion of those earnings in protected trust funds the child can access at 18. And in some states, once they turn 18, they can even request that those videos be deleted from the internet entirely. Now, Ryan's name doesn't appear in any of those laws, but his entire story is written into every single one of them. Because the Kajis never faced a courtroom, but they became the case study that forced lawmakers to finally take action. Because the truth is, Ryan is 14 now, but his parents made over $100 million off his childhood. The laws they helped inspire will protect thousands of other kids going forward. And when Ryan turns 18, if he decides to tell his actual story, Not the one that was scripted for him. That's going to be the most watched video the internet has ever seen, and his parents will have nobody to blame but themselves for that one.